I watched the live stream in silence, eyes fixed on the trembling cursor as it hovered over the basement door. The YouTuber, some horror game influencer with millions of subscribers, laughed nervously, unaware that the next room held not just another jump scare, but a piece of my soul. "There's something about this game that feels personal," he said to his audience, like the dev had a real axe to grind. He had no idea. Behind my screen, I wasn't smiling. I was shaking. Not from fear, but from something deeper. Anticipation, dread. Rage, still clinging to my bones after all these years. But also something I hadn't expected, guilt. He clicked the door. The screen went black, save for a whisper in distorted audio. "Remember when you locked me in here?" The influencer jumped, cursed, and laughed with the audience. But my breath caught in my throat. They thought it was fiction, just another haunted indie title. But it was real. Every shadow, every echo, every cruel puzzle, they were memories. Their cruelty had become content. My pain, now a product, and the world, obsessed. I was the one who made it, the one they called Zero Ghost, the one who turned his scars into pixels. But this wasn't revenge. Not yet. My name is Milo Reyes. I'm 27 years old, and I'm the creator of the horror game Classroom 3A. It wasn't supposed to go viral, not like this. I thought a few niche players would dig through it, maybe admire the mechanics or atmosphere, but instead, it blew up. Clips all over TikTok, streamers screaming their lungs out, Reddit threads unraveling the meaning behind every note, every bloodied locker, every whisper in the dark. And me? I stayed anonymous, hiding behind my handle, Zero Ghost. It was fitting. Because for most of my life, I felt invisible. Or worse, targeted. Back then, in that school with the peeling walls and the flickering hallway lights, I was never Milo. I was mucus, doormat, loser with the lisp. I didn't fight back. I didn't know how. I was the kid with two big glasses, doodling monsters in the margins of his math notebook while trying to disappear. They noticed anyway. Jason, Amber, Dylan, Elle. They turned my quiet into permission, and my silence into a game. You'd think it was one ringleader, but no, they were a pack. A rotating cast of smiles that twisted when teachers weren't looking. Jason was the worst. Football golden boy. A master of subtle humiliation. He'd trip me in hallways and grin like it was an accident. Amber liked psychological warfare. She'd pretend to be nice, only to publicly mock the way I talked. Dylan was the muscle. Big, dumb, and eager to please whoever fed his ego. And Elle. Elle was the one I trusted, until I learned not to. She laughed the hardest when I cried. The worst part? I wanted to be their friend. I brought extra pens, lent notes, complimented their work, desperate to be liked. But the more I tried, the crueler they became. And then came that day. The closet. They said it was a prank. They told me to check the janitor's closet after school. That someone left me a gift for helping with notes. I went. They locked me in, left me there for hours. It wasn't just dark, it was suffocating. I remember screaming until my voice cracked. I clawed at the door, crying, sweating, gasping for air that felt thinner by the second. No one came. By the time a custodian opened it, it was nearly midnight. They never got punished. Not really. Just advised by the principal, who called it a misunderstanding. My parents moved me schools after that. But the scars followed me. And years later, when I began making horror games, I finally had the tools to speak. I wasn't looking for them. When I released Classroom 3A, I used fictional names, slightly altered faces. I didn't want a lawsuit. I just wanted to process it. The game wasn't about them. until they found it. It started with a comment on one of the Reddit threads. Anyone else notice how Jake, Amira, and Eli look a little too familiar? This feels real. I brushed it off. Plenty of horror games borrow from real life. But then I got a message from L. Milo, is this your game? My breath caught. I hadn't heard from her in over a decade. Another message followed, this one colder. This is messed up. You need to take it down. She wasn't asking. Within a week, Amber messaged too. Then Dylan. Then Jason. Their reactions were the same. Anger, denial, outrage that I dared to recreate the past they thought was buried. Jason's was the worst. You're seriously going to ruin people's lives over some stupid high school jokes? Get a grip, man. You're pathetic. But the game didn't ruin anything. Their own guilt did. One night, I watched a stream where a player entered the nurse's office, a level mirroring the exact room I'd once hidden in to avoid them. In the game, a bloody note read, "Every apology came too late, or never at all." In real life, none ever came. What hurt more than the bullying was the silence afterward. Not a single one of them had reached out after the closet incident, not even L, who I thought might feel something. I told myself they were young, stupid, scared. But watching their responses now, how quickly they tried to silence me instead of listening, I realized something bitter. They didn't think they'd done anything wrong. To them, it was all just a phase. To me, it was my trauma. They lived unbothered lives, careers, families, normalcy, while I sat at my computer, dissecting old wounds and shaping them into nightmares. My pain became their entertainment, and when it mirrored too much truth, they panicked. It wasn't the horror they feared, it was recognition. They saw themselves in the monsters. And that's when I realized I hadn't just made a game, I'd made a mirror. The game hit 1 million downloads in 2 weeks. Merch, fan art, theory videos. People were calling it the Silent Hill of our generation. But I wasn't celebrating. I should have felt proud. I should have felt healed. Instead, I was waking up with headaches, nightmares. My inbox was a war zone, strangers praising me, others accusing me of exploiting trauma, and then them, the real ones, sending veiled threats and legal warnings. Jason posted a video online. This guy's deranged. I don't even remember half the stuff he's whining about. People are too soft nowadays. His followers ate it up. Thousands of likes, mocking comments, memes calling me the snowflake dev. I shut my laptop. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. The loneliness hit harder than I expected. It was like I'd opened old wounds hoping they'd bleed out, but instead, they just festered in the light. I kept telling myself, the game was my way of taking back power. But maybe I'd just built a cage. And every time someone played it, I stepped back inside. I started questioning everything. Was this still about healing, or had I crossed a line? I reread old journal entries from high school, pages smeared with tears and sketches of imaginary worlds where I had control, where I was the one with the voice. This game had given me that voice. But what was I saying? I wasn't just sharing a story. I was forcing people to relive it, maybe even weaponizing it. Was I any better than them now? The worst moment came late one night, when I opened an email from a fan. Your game helped me confront what happened to me. Thank you for showing we're not alone. I cried. Because I'd forgotten that part. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. There was value in telling the truth. But there had to be more than pain at the end of it. There had to be something else, something beyond revenge. Maybe even redemption. But first, I had to face them. Not in pixels, in person. I reopened my high school yearbook, not to reminisce, but to map out a plan. Jason was now a gym trainer, flaunting his body online for sponsorships. Amber ran a parenting blog full of curated smiles and Pinterest crafts. Dylan sold real estate. Elle had become a guidance counselor, of all things. I stared at her photo the longest. The irony hurt. But so did the hope I felt, like maybe, just maybe, she'd changed. I started collecting pieces, podcasts they'd been on, posts they'd written, clips they'd liked. I wasn't stalking, I was studying. For the first time, I wanted to understand, not destroy. What turned them into bullies? Was it survival, insecurity, cruelty passed down from their own wounds? I had spent years hiding behind screens and shadows. Now, I wanted truth, not a confrontation to humiliate, but a confrontation to reclaim my story. So I messaged Elle. It took 2 weeks for her to respond. Is this about the game? Yes, but it's also about the past. We met at a quiet cafe halfway between our cities. I wore a hoodie and sunglasses. She wore guilt. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. I didn't know it was that bad, she said after the awkward hello. I didn't think we were that cruel. You laughed while they locked me in, I said. Her face fell. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was scared of being on the outside, so I played along. For a moment, I wanted to shout. I wanted to hurl my coffee, demand why she never said anything, why she let them carve me up piece by piece. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Do you remember what you called me?" She winced. Zero. That's why I chose Zero Ghost. She nodded slowly. You turned it into something powerful. I wasn't sure if it was pride or regret in her voice. Maybe both. Before she left, she looked at me and said something I never expected. They still laugh about it sometimes. You should talk to them too. I started coding again, but not for a sequel. This was something new. An epilogue. A hidden room in classroom 3A. No jump scares, just a bench, a window, a digital version of the cafe where I met Elle, and a prompt. Sit. Listen. Forgive if you're ready. It wouldn't unlock until players beat the entire game, and it wouldn't reward them with achievements or secrets. Just silence. A moment to breathe. That was what I was building now. Space to heal. And I was finally ready to talk to the others. Jason, Amber, Dylan. Not to scare them, not to expose them, but to face them. So I sent the invitations. We met at the old community center. Neutral ground. Jason walked in first, arms crossed, chin raised, still carrying that smug aura. Amber followed, glancing at her phone more than my face. Dylan arrived last, quieter than I remembered. He looked tired, softer. None of them greeted me. I broke the silence. I didn't call you here to fight. Jason scoffed. You sure about that? 'Cause your little horror game torched my career. My sponsors dropped me. Amber added. My inbox was full of hate mail. You dragged our names through the mud. I stayed still. I never used your names. You didn't have to, Jason growled. You made us monsters. I looked each of them in the eyes. You were monsters. Back then. Dylan spoke up for the first time. You think we don't regret it? I blinked. I have nightmares about the closet, he said. I hear you screaming in the dark sometimes. Jason went quiet. Amber's lips trembled. I used to think it was funny, until I had kids. Now, if someone did that to them, her voice broke, I'd want blood. There it was. Not a full apology, not yet, but something real, something raw. And for the first time, I saw them, not as villains, but as people still running from who they used to be. We talked for hours. No yelling. Just uncomfortable truths. Jason admitted he hated me, because I reminded him of his younger brother. Quiet, fragile, gay, and how his father used to beat him for it. Amber confessed she envied my intelligence, since she copied my notes not just to pass, but to survive her home, where failure meant punishment. Dylan said he followed them because being alone scared him more than hurting someone. None of this excused what they did, but it made the shadows look human. I won't forget, I told them, but I won't carry it forever either. Jason leaned back, eyes wet but defiant. So what? You forgive us? Just like that? No, I said. Not just like that. I paused. But I'm choosing to. Because I'm tired of dragging you around in my chest. Amber whispered, "Thank you." And Jason, for the first time in his life, said something I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry." I walked home that night lighter than I'd felt in years. I didn't rush to post about it. I didn't need the internet to see. It wasn't a victory. It was a release. I opened my laptop and uploaded the final patch to Classroom 3A. The patch note was simple. A place for closure has been added. That secret room, the one with the bench and window, now, when players entered, they'd hear my voice. Not distorted, not ghostly, just me. If you've made it here, thank you. You've faced the dark, maybe even your own. And now, I invite you to rest. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's freeing. I hope you find yours. It wasn't planned. Jason showed up at my door a week later. No cameras, no crew, just him. No longer the jock with swagger, but a man carrying years of weight. I thought we were done, I said, keeping the screen door between us. He nodded. We are. I needed to say something. Not over coffee, not in a meeting room. Here, where you live, where you built all this. He gestured vaguely toward the apartment behind me, toward the glowing screens, the notes taped to my wall, the concept sketches of broken hallways and haunted classrooms. This was your world, he said, and I never gave a damn what it felt like to live in it. I didn't speak. I've been playing your game, he went on. At first I was pissed, thought it was all lies, but it wasn't. Every hallway felt familiar. Every monster sounded like something I said. He looked up at me, eyes bloodshot. I was horrible to you, and I knew it. I told myself you deserved it. But I was a scared, stupid kid who only felt big when someone else felt small. The silence between us felt loaded. I won't ask you to forget, he said, but I had to stand here and say it, to your face. I'm sorry, Milo. I looked at him for a long time. Not as a villain, not even as a friend, just as a man trying. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. He nodded and turned to leave, but I stopped him. One more thing, I said. He turned. Did you ever mean to lock me in that closet that long? He hesitated, looked down. No, it was supposed to be 5 minutes, just to scare you. But no one came back. I left, and I told myself it wasn't my fault. It was, I said. He nodded again, shame settling on his shoulders. Yeah, it was. He left without another word. And for the first time in years, I closed the door behind me, not with dread, but with peace.